Hello, everybody. Welcome to another day at Live at the Waterhole. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I'll be your host, or the voice that you'll be hearing for the next couple of hours. If this is your first time joining, welcome. It's great to have you on board the largest safari vehicle in the world because, yes, even though we're just watching the Waterhole cameras, well, it's going to be all about wildlife. And I can't wait to see what questions and discussions we're going to have today. And if you'd like to know how you can chat to me, you can utilize the YouTube chat until 1 o'clock. And then, unfortunately, you're going to have to switch over to the WildEarth website. Or if you're watching through OpenView, that's fantastic as well. Let me know what platform you're watching on. You can head across to the WildEarth website. There's a tab for questions, and that's the best way, of course, sending them through. But today we started at Okukuyo Waterhole, which is in Namibia and located in Etosha National Park. So, as I always do, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds just to say hello, how's it, how you doing, and tell me where you're from and what you're looking forward to seeing most today. Now, it is a Monday, or it might be Sunday evening for some of you. So I suspect people are at work or getting ready for bed. The Springbuck are doing the complete opposite. It's midday for them, and they've come down to have their daily drink. Well, there we go. I see the first comment has come through on the YouTube chat, and it's from Catherine. You say, "Good morning, everybody." Hello, Catherine. I am glad that you are here with us today, with us, with me, and all my personalities, and of course, all the animals, I suppose I mean when I say we. I'm just looking at all these female springbuck. They are looking like they're going to burst any moment. I have not seen a young springbuck actually ever in my entire life. Can you believe that? I have seen adult springbuck, but never the little ones. But I bet that they are adorable, especially because springbuck are such athletes. And we often, well, now at this time of the year, we're watching the impala test their legs and bounding about. And springbuck will do something very similar. You might also hear some voices. They're not inside your head, I promise. It's a lodge that is just behind the camera. It's quite a big setup. So there are multiple people that are watching this from the comfort of their deck. Hey, 40, you said good morning. You can't see, can't wait to see what I find. Well, I hope so. With the help of the Zoomies, we'll be searching together. We've also got Wheatman45. He said hello from California, USA, and Justin Wright, hoping to see a rhino at Okukuyo. We've been itching to see a black rhino. Maybe today will be the day. And then Agnes, you've asked, what is the name of this animal? So these animals that you can see, these are called springbuck, and it's actually the national mammal of South Africa. However, they're not as common in South Africa. They prefer sort of more arid environments. Um, so yeah, so in Namibia you see plenty of them. But a very long time ago in South Africa, the herds of springbuck were plentiful. And unfortunately, due to agriculture and farming of domestic animals, a lot of the areas that they preferred were basically lost, and that meant that they almost became locally extinct in certain areas. But there's a big drive all over the world to try and reintroduce animals to places where they would have once occurred. Here comes a zebra too. I'm sure there must be more than one. And the resident little grebe, that's the bird, swimming around on the left-hand side. And then we go have a quick wide view and see what else is about. Okie dokie. Oh, it looks like the clouds are coming over at Okukuyo. Could that mean rain? Let's go check out the weather and find out. So a mix of temperatures today, quite a few locations in the mid to high 20s. This is degrees Celsius, of course. And Okukuyo, goodness gracious, it is quite warm. It's 36 degrees Celsius. So as these temperatures continue to rise, because it is a rainy season at this time of the year, we are going to see temperatures rise, big cloud formations, and then a break as the temperature drops and the rain falls. And then guess what? It all starts again. Yesterday we had beautiful clear skies at Okukuyo. I don't think that there was any rain there last night, but I do stand to be corrected. But this looks like it's gearing up for an afternoon thunderstorm, and I bet it is going to be spectacular if that does happen. The rain hasn't been doing what it normally does, though. We haven't had nearly enough rain for this time of the year, especially in parts of South Africa, which is concerning. I don't know if we're just going to have a lot of late rain, maybe going into next year. That's been the trend for, I think it's been the past 2 years now, where we get lots of rain in April, March and April. But that's typically when the rain stops. Jessie girl, you said, oh, you've just tuned in and you love the beautiful springback. I think everyone will agree with you. They are fantastic to watch. There's not that many here today, but noticing that the animals are sort of few and far between at this waterhole. So I suspect that there must be obviously other waterholes that are filling up now with the rain, and so the animals are able to disperse slightly. But there's still a lot of action around here. But at one point, just a couple of months ago, uh, there would almost be animals surrounding the entirety of this waterhole itself. Elephants and kudu, an impala, springback, zebra, wildebeest, the odd giraffe, you name it. They were all here.
For those in the wet and cold this festive season, transport yourself to a warm and sunny Africa. With virtual safaris in real time. Interact with African naturalists, connect with fellow nature lovers across the globe, fall in love with nature, and join the WildEarth family this festive season. WildEarth, connecting you to nature.
but there's a little bit of wind. You can see the shake on the camera and how the water is rippling. Just the petite legs of the springbuck and a blacksmith lapwing navigating the rocks. Oh, there's two. What are those? Actually, what are those on the right? It looks like there's three birds. Are they three young blacksmith lapwing chicks? It looks like it. There we go. Hello, little ones. That's nice to see. They're just behind that springbuck that has its head down and is drinking. Do they run off to the right? Oh, that's good. I think it is them. We can maybe try get a closer look. Listen to how unhappy those crows are. Let's see if we can see them, because maybe there's a predator or something around, even a bird of prey. It might also be a dispute amongst the crows, but this is the first time I've heard such a chorus of crows. Look at what's going on. Okay, let's have a look where all the crows are gathering. As to what on earth is happening. Some have taken to the air. Normally when we hear calls like this, these raspy calls, we associate with, them potentially mobbing another bird of prey. They're all standing around the black-headed heron, but the black-headed heron is always here. And they don't seem to be reacting to one thing in particular. I'm also just having a look. I can't see. Oh no, there, when they fly, I can see the white. There's just some of them that look completely black, and I wonder if there's Cape crows in and amongst the pied crows. Let's see. I'm just looking to see. There we go. We've got a tighter view. Yeah, it does in fact look like there's Cape crows, which is great. I haven't seen the Cape crows. So the difference between the pied and the Cape crows is, as the name pied suggests, black and white. So you'll see they have a almost like a white bib. It goes down onto their breast and then behind the back of their neck, whereas the Cape crow is completely black in coloration. So maybe there's a feud between the two species. So, Cape crows, of course, can be in territorial groups, which may explain the consistent vocalizations. You can see calling and then opening and closing their wings. Justin, right? You said that they're going berserk. No, they absolutely were. Settling down a little bit now. I was really hoping for a predator. I thought, right, today's my day. And if there was a bird of prey flying around, we most certainly would have seen some of the crows flying and chasing after it.
Fancy playing safari snaps? Or showing off your photo skills in fun competitions? How about sneak peeks of our brand new camera spots and live chats with fellow Africam fans? Well, Africam All Access has got your back. Just head to Africam's YouTube channel, hit the join button, and select Africam All Access. You'll unlock Africam premium website perks and all the VIP benefits of our YouTube memberships.
So, Justin Wright, thank you again for all of your questions. You said that you know the Namib Desert is the oldest, and then you've asked, but what is the oldest creature in the Namib Desert? Well, so for those of you who don't know, it's estimated that the Namib Desert is about 80 million years old, which is spectacular. So you can imagine a number of different organisms have come and gone. Uh, but I suppose the oldest living creature that you can still see today is maybe not an animal, but rather a plant. Have you ever heard of a welwitschia? It's an interesting looking thing. I've heard people describe it as a overgrown turnip, but essentially it's a plant and it's got these big, long, narrow sort of leaves that extend from the center. And they've been estimated the ones that are left to be anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 years old. So it is a living organism, so we can definitely include that. Maybe it's a far stretch as a creature, but I can't think of any sort of mammal species or even arthropods that are that long living. But anyways, those plants are spectacular and really special to see. But sadly, many people have collected them, taken them out of their natural habitat, and one of the biggest issues is for firewood, and then also people uprooting them and putting them in museums. And I suppose it's like a collector's item, right? Now there's obviously strict laws prohibiting you from doing that. I'm sure, of course, you can get permits and exceptions will be made. Oh, there's a gemsbok, another animal that we haven't seen this morning, and there's a few more at the back hoping to come down and have a drink. But Justin, if you know of anything else, please let me know. I mean, the elephants, of course, are going to be the oldest living animals, right? That we typically see in an area like this. But of course, Okokuyo is not the only waterhole camera that we have today. We're going to jump on across to a Juma private game reserve where I'm sitting to check out the Gari Dam. Oh, lots and lots of impala underneath the shade of a large jackalberry tree. That's the tree on the right-hand side. They have a beautiful big canopies, which all the animals are appreciative of, especially at this time of the year. Charlotte Jackson, this is a great question. You said the live drives and water holes are very different, and you've asked me what do I like about each. Let's start with the waterhole cameras. So I enjoy being able to bounce between different locations without having to travel the distances, right? I think that this is truly amazing. I mean, in the Waterhole show, we can essentially visit South Africa, we can go into Namibia. When the AfriCam cameras join, we have the opportunity to also go into Zimbabwe and Kenya. So you can do 4 different countries in just a couple of hours. So I love that element, and then just the diversity of animals that come with it. And then with the live drives, honestly I prefer the live drives because I like to drive vehicles, I like to walk and be in nature and appreciate all the sights, sounds, and smells that come with the bush. I enjoy having to track and work hard to find animals. Of course, some days you just stumble across them, which is great. I like doing that, but that's not always the case. So I enjoy all those different things. I also like the live drives because I can get closer to a lot more of the plants, and I can look at arthropods and all those wonderful things. It looks like this is a nursery group. They're all young impala that are standing together. And sorry, the camera is shaking again just because of the gusts of wind. So this is quite typical. All the youngsters obviously want to associate with one another. They're of similar age, they will need to rest lots, but they also like to play quite a bit. So they'll sit down together, and the adults will, at this age now, because they will come back to the herd, they won't be too far away. They'll just be nearby, maybe feeding, doing a bit of ruminating, or also having a siesta. You all know the expression two shakes of a lamb's leg or two shakes of a lamb's tail. When somebody says to you, how long is it going to be, or something along those lines. I think on safaris we could probably say two shakes of an impala's leg, although with all the flies and things around, it happens pretty often. Suppose you say that when you don't have an accurate answer and you just want to be a bit vague. Lal, you said, are there males that are close by to protect the creche? Uh, so this is actually interesting. Um, Firstly, there go the males chasing each other around. All the young lambs jump to their feet and because they heard a snort, and they haven't quite worked out what the different vocalizations mean. This is going to be something that they are going to learn over time. So naturally, they jump to their feet and panic a bit. We would probably find that the youths are not completely interested in the boys chasing each other about because it happens so frequently. Uh, so normally the rams they're not involved in parental care of these youngsters. Of course, the rams are around. They want to have as many females and youngsters that they can typically look after. But when something like a leopard or a hyena or a rather large predator comes around, it's kind of like everyone fend for yourself. And these antelope are uh, really on the athletic side and will jump and bound and try and get away. Even the youngsters. What happens quite often with the youngsters is that they get confused. They might not follow the adults, and then they could potentially stop or they run the wrong way. And of course, obviously, animals can just hunt and stalk them too. But what I have seen, which was so interesting, Lyle, and I've only seen this once, but again, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen all the time just because we don't see it. And this is what we're kind of learning. We have to be very careful about putting animal and describing their behavior and putting them in a box. So when I was in Kenya with WildEarth, I had a sighting where a pair of blackback jackals attacked a newborn impala lamb. The female had given birth uh, not too long ago. Maybe it was a couple of days old. So she hadn't quite moved back to the rest of the group. She was just still sticking to the denser vegetation, but there were impala around. And Anyways, she was panicked, and these jackal were, grabbing hold of this youngster. The poor impala lamb was bleating, and the next minute she ran off. And of course, the jackals were still just biting on it, and this little lamb was still alive. And the next minute she came back with an impala ram. And he then chased the jackals away. At one point he made contact with one of the jackals, and they ran off. But sadly, it was too late. The lamb ended up dying. So I thought that that was quite fascinating that something like that happened. So I wonder how often it does happen. But I've also seen crazy scenarios where wildebeest will stand up to leopards when their offspring have been taken. So yeah, so it's just great to see. But for a big predator, that might be on the tricky side to stand up to something like a leopard or lion, as more likely than not, it's going to end up in them losing their lives. So those are Inyala, just behind them, much larger antelope species. And Diane, you said, how soon do baby antelopes start ruminating? Well, that's a good one. So, for the first couple of weeks of their life, impala are going to drink milk, but naturally, they're going to start tasting and nibbling on plants because they're watching what the adults do. So, I suppose once they start ingesting plant matter, that's going to be maybe a natural response. I don't think it's anything that they control. You know, I don't know. I doubt it's a taught behavior. It's just part of the mechanisms of an impala or any of the other ruminants. So if you don't know what ruminate or rumination is, have you ever seen a cow just chewing and chewing and chewing, but you didn't see it eat anything? So they've got one stomach with four different chambers, and they have one of the most effective digestive systems. So they'll feed on whichever plant that they're eating. They'll chew it up and swallow it, and it goes into the first chamber. Then what happens? And then some partial digestion takes place, and then they regurgitate the food and and then that bolus they start chewing again to break it down further, and then they swallow it, and then that bolus will then head down into the second, third, and fourth chambers. So that's why animals will chew, 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 and that's what we refer to as chewing the cud. Right, but the impala have been great. We'll definitely be back. We're going to head back over to Namibia because some elephants have arrived. Three big bulls having a drink, one venturing deep into the water, and it's hot, hot, hot. So maybe that will give us a bit of a splashdown and have a swim. We'll just sit and watch them for a moment and see what they get up to.
Family is one of nature's masterpieces. Come along and embrace it with the WildEarth family. Our expert naturalists will spend the day tracking and spotting the families of the safari and explain family dynamics in the wild. The memories we make with our family are everything. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Jerry, you're wondering if the temporal glands of both male and female elephants leak. So I can't see any of these elephants secreting the hormone called temporin. So if you look sort of by their eyes, you can see that there's sort of almost looks like a swollen gland between their eye and the opening of their ear. And there is a little opening there. It's difficult to see when the temporin isn't streaming down. So yes, both male and female will produce temporin, and it can be secreted in a very short period of time. So kind of think of it like an overstimulation of like adrenaline, right? So this can happen when you're excited, when you're angry, when you're stressed out, when the conditions and environment are not great. So say during drought periods, all these types of things. So depending on that animal's mood, that could of course come in. So if you find, say, let's use an example, if wild dogs were to come charging around and there's a breeding herd of elephants, we'd start to see that a lot of the elephants, including the young ones, would secrete the temporin. Elephant bulls, when they are in a state called must, that's when they are producing more testosterone than they normally would to help drive them in search of female elephants that are in estrus. They will constantly secrete from those temporal glands, and they are swollen, really swollen when they are in must. So I hope that helps. And then Manchester Man, you said, have I ever been close enough to an elephant to touch it? I've definitely been close to elephants, predominantly in a vehicle. And I suppose, yes, I could touch it, but I never would. Obviously, it's a hands-off approach when we're dealing with wild animals. And I never intentionally drive into a herd of elephants or right up to an elephant. I'd rather sit a little bit further away, and if the elephants are comfortable and they're moving in my direction, and obviously watching their behavior very carefully, they might walk right past the car. This is because they've become habituated to the vehicle. So it doesn't mean that they're tame, but they feel a lot more relaxed around us. However, elephant bulls can be quite cheeky, and they'll sometimes want to reach out and touch the cars. And I've even seen it where elephants will stick their trunks in and kind of, yeah, kind of want to touch people. Obviously, this is completely frowned upon. Please don't do this. However, what I will say, Manchester Man, is when I was doing some contract work in Sri Lanka, I had some really uncomfortable encounters with the elephants. And this wasn't necessarily the elephants that were in the national parks. Um, there are some elephants that have worked out that if you stand next to the sides of the roads, and uh, and because we as humans cannot help ourselves, they've been fed, and they then will almost stop vehicles from passing by and give you a full body inspection looking for something. This is problematic, and I've been in a very uncomfortable position where elephant had its trunk in the vehicle and all around me. Obviously, I was panicking because I never wanted to get myself into that situation. It was really not a nice experience at all. But it's a tricky thing to control, because with some of the cultures there, it is believed that if something or someone asks you for something, especially if it's food, you never say no. You give them what you have. And elephants are worshipped in many different religions, and especially in Sri Lanka, elephants are sacred animals. So it's very, very easy for these animals to go, well, what's the point of going out and feeding on vegetation? Of course, they still eat that, but a pineapple or an entire watermelon tastes so much better. So it's probably something that they're never going to be able to stop, as we know, with certain cultural norms and religions. Certain things will never change. I do think it's scary though, because how do you say no to an elephant? And what do you do when he's really mad and you don't have anything for him? So that terrifies me slightly. And then Gia, who's just 10 years old, you said, is the bottom part of an elephant's foot hard? I've never touched the bottom of an elephant's foot before here, but an older elephant's foot will definitely be slightly hardened. So if you think of your feet, for an example, but you're just 10 years old, so your feet underneath your soles are going to be nice and soft. But as you start to get older, your feet, your heels start to crack, and sometimes calluses and things can form because you might be walking on different terrain, whatever the kind of case may be. And it's the same thing with these elephants. They walk and walk and walk, and the older they get, the tougher their skin gets. So when the elephant is really young, the sole of their foot's going to be quite soft, but it does toughen up really quickly. And then, Meredith, you're wondering how on earth do these reserves get colors on these elephants? Well, it's quite the process, and it's a risky process. And what will have to happen is that wildlife vets will come in and they will dart the animals and tranquilize them. And what the animals they'll use a dart gun. Maybe they will dart the animal from a helicopter or a vehicle. It really just depends. And then once the animal goes down, then they'll come through and make sure that the elephant is sitting in or lying down in an appropriate position. They often put a stick between the tip of their trunk to make sure that they keep the airwaves open at all times. And then they'll put the collar on and give the animal a reversal drug, and then it will wake up and carry on with its day. So that's typically how it's done. But again, it's risky. These animals are so sensitive to a lot of the drugs. And you've also got to make sure that when you do these types of operations, you're not doing it during the peak of summer. Because, for example, elephants, rhinos, they don't sweat in the way that you and I sweat. Elephants have got sweat glands go between their toes, but otherwise they need to cool themselves down like what they're doing. That's why they're spraying water all over themselves. So normally projects like that should and would be done in the cooler months. Thank you so much for all the questions that are coming in. Catherine, you said it's so awful and dangerous when humans teach animals that they can expect food from them. Absolutely. The animal that I think we see universal is various primate species, where of course it's so funny to give a monkey a banana, right? Or yeah, whatever. I mean, we can go on and on with different examples, but in South Africa and Sri Lanka, it was really bad with the macaques. In South Africa, the chukma baboons and the vervet monkeys, they cause all sorts of problems, and it's really just stems to humans, and now it's affecting us, and we're all mad about it, but we started it. You know, a baboon doesn't just go into your kitchen and make a sandwich, right? But when it learns that we as humans, we have food, and if we've either initiated it by throwing something else or even handing it to them, then they learn and they start to break into houses. I mean, in Cape Town, they open car doors, they steal people's handbags because they've learned, like in high touristy areas, that people now hide their food, and they hide their food in a bag. So you just have to be so careful. Wild animals are extremely powerful. Any animal can be dangerous, even the springbuck. And I know they're small animals, but still they're armed with horns. I mean, this elephant weighs tons and tons. You can just imagine it's a recipe for disaster. I wonder if this individual that we're looking at now is one of the bulls from yesterday. There was one that had two broken short tusks with almost no hair on the tip of its tail. But if you were watching live at the Waterhole yesterday when I was hosting, let me know if you agree. It's hard not to fall asleep watching these bulls, even taking a break from splashing themselves with water, all having a siesta. Don't you just love how the bull on the left hand side has swung his trunk over his broken tusk? Rosie from the USA, you've said when an elephant bull has been separated from his mother, do they recognize each other years later? I would imagine so. The only thing, though, is that breeding herds of elephants don't always stay in the same area. They move pretty big distances. So that elephants have got home ranges, and naturally, before there were plenty of fences that have been erected or towns that have been built, the elephants would migrate, feed in an area, and might not revisit that space for a few years. So, the chances of an elephant encountering its mother again, definitely possible. But I reckon there's a large percentage that in these big open ecosystems where they can roam free and cross different borders into various countries, that some would never see their mothers again. Elephants are highly intelligent, though, and are able to remember and recognize many different individual elephants. And some will have better relationships with each other than others. So, in an ecosystem that's closed, for an example, let's use Madikwe Game Reserve, you'll find that the bulls will encounter their their mothers more frequently. Whether or not she's going to be tolerant of him, I don't know. There's a reason that why the bulls leave the herd. They just become too boisterous, and it's not very pleasant when you're constantly being reprimanded by the adults in the group, including your own mother. We've had some great sightings of where elephant cows will discipline youngsters, males and females. And Jamie, a couple of years ago, had a crazy sighting on one of the live safaris where I'll never forget it. An elephant cow actually pushed over and pinned a youngster to the ground. I think it was a young bull. I don't know, I can't remember what he was doing, but he obviously deserved it, and it was quite serious. Of course, the bull just got up and went about its day afterward, but with a bruised ego. Alexis, you're wondering if I've ever seen predators feeding on an elephant. I have. I have indeed. We've seen it here. Well, in Juma, on the live safaris. They also again many years ago, and it was a sighting that Brent had of a young elephant bull that had been injured by a bigger bull, and part of his intestines were hanging out, and unfortunately he ended up dying. And we had many different animals and predators feeding, from leopards. Hosanna actually went around there. I can't remember if he fed on it or not, but he definitely investigated around the carcass. Hyenas obviously climbed on in and loved it, and all the vultures and jackal, you name it. I don't think the Nkuhuma pride fed on the carcass. They did also come round, so maybe they had a munch, but we never found lions, that were just kind of lying about consistently feeding on it. However, there are prides of lions, in Zimbabwe, and specifically Wangi National Park, that is famous for the lions that hunt elephants. And then in Tanzania, it happens quite often. Actually, it can really just happen anywhere. But yes, they absolutely do. Quite a traumatic experience, as you can imagine, because it's not easy to bring down an elephant. Of course, these animal predators are not going to be hunting a fully grown elephant bull. That is a death sentence if they were to try and do that. But it would be young individuals that have maybe strayed too far from the herd, maybe they're sick or weak, young bulls that are, on their way out of a breeding herd and trying to find their feet. And occasionally, again, it's not something that happens all the time, but it does happen where predators are able to separate a calf from their side. Lions, for an example, are just formidable predators. They bring down enormous prey. Even just watching them hunt giraffe, like in Ruaha National Park, which is in Tanzania. That's where all the documentaries have been filmed about the prides that hunt giraffe. Actually, in places in Namibia, actually, and I think it is Etosha too. The desert lions will hunt giraffe, and that's a dangerous thing to do. Of course, this doesn't weigh anywhere near the same as an elephant, but giraffe are equipped with powerful legs and a deadly kick that could easily break the jaw of a lion or kick them in the head, and they could die instantly or become really injured. Justice, you're wondering if bulls ever make sure their calves become their askari? No, not necessarily. I highly doubt it. So I was talking about must earlier, and it's this sort of heightened state where the elephant bulls produce a lot of testosterone when they reach sexual maturity. And then I'll just quickly touch on this. This can vary in age, but it typically happens when they're in their 20s. However, must can be suppressed and should be suppressed by the older bulls by constantly asserting their dominance over them. As a bull of 20 years old definitely does not have mating rights, as if it's open to ecosystem, they're going to be much bigger bulls around. So those bulls can travel really far away, and the likelihood of an elephant bull staying in the area where it was born is a slim. Again, if it's on a closed ecosystem, that's obviously a given unless it gets relocated. So they don't really keep. I don't think they keep track with who they mated with and who their sons are, because again, they might never see them again. But they don't have any responsibility with parental care. They mate and then move off.
The world is celebrating Trivia Day, And WildEarth wants to share little trinkets of knowledge with you.
Poison is something, if you ingest, will kill you. Venom has to be injected.
Come along for a hilarious day and be entertained with our team trivia. Our expert naturalists across locations will pair up and compete in wildlife trivia in a battle to be the smarty pants of the safari. Don't miss out on the action. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Neil, you agree that the elephant bull on the left hand side, the two broken tusks, is in fact one of the bulls that we saw yesterday. These three might be associating with one another, or perhaps they just arrived at the waterhole at the same time. That's also a possibility. But the bull on the left was with one other individual too that also had a broken tusk. But they'll meet up as they go, and it's not surprising to see bulls around a waterhole, as they typically come and spend quite a bit of time in this area. Well, you've wondered if I think that this bull is in his 50s. I do. I do reckon maybe he's even a little bit older than that. He's an impressive individual, this one on the left hand side. I think Betty's got many stories that he can tell. Again, you can just see how different the behavior is with mature bulls versus the youngsters and just how boisterous they are. These three are entirely relaxed with each other's presence. And at this age, I don't think they're interested in exerting themselves uh, to prove that they're more dominant, especially when there aren't any females around. If there are and there are cows that are in estrus, that's of course going to be a different story. Oh, here we go. Here come the Egyptian geese gosling. A whole bunch of them. We had a great sighting of, not yesterday, it was the day before, where it was hot and sunny. And the Egyptian geese goslings wanted a break from the heat, but there's no shade except under that one tree. So while the elephants were slightly submerged in the water, they thought, well, we'll just swim and stay underneath your belly where there was a nice shadow casted. Now you can see for now, he seems disinterested, sorry, in these goslings. But a young elephant would not be tolerating these little birds. They would have most certainly chased them away. They better be careful though. Here comes another one and another one. Just unbelievable to see how relaxed the goslings are around the elephants. or especially these ones. They've obviously had some nice peaceful encounters with the bulls, but they're not too worried about them. And off they go. Maybe we can follow the geese just to see what they get up to and what the other bulls do when they come passing by. There they are, now in the water, feeding, all sticking together. None of the adults around. They're obviously taking a break, and you can see second bull not perturbed at all. We'll head over to the third bull and see what his response is. I think they're a bit nervous. Maybe because the elephant on the right, I think he might be drinking. I can't really see. But perhaps that swinging around with the trunk is a bit too much. But let's see. They've built up some confidence. Hesitant, though. Wanting to go, but then stopping. Oh, shame. Look at that. Isn't it hilarious when they do that? When they stretch up, flap their non-existent wings. Shame. That's so sweet. Yeah, so that happens quite often. So it's not anything that's necessarily done maliciously. Maybe a younger individual, if an elephant is having a bad day, perhaps it'll react in a different sense. But for the most part, I'm sure it's just accidental. Where are the Egyptian geese adults? I could sort of hear them, but I can't find them. Normally, they won't let the goslings out of their sight, especially out in the open like this. There's no real cover. If a bird of prey flies over and swoops down and tries to grab one of the goslings. Trixie Rose, you've said that you see the two old guys are missing their tail hairs, and you just said wear and tear. You suppose you're absolutely spot on. It's something that wears down. I mean, elephants constantly rubbing up against trees would definitely do that. And also, as you get older, and in some cases, you could end up losing hair. Your hair becomes finer. Um, so that's probably also got something to do with it. And it's just gone 1 p.m. South African time. And you know what that means? The AfriCam cameras are going to be available from us. So I wonder what cameras we're going to have today. I can't wait and see.